Your Humanities Half Hour is brought to you by the Northern Marianas Humanities Council.
Happedes and Tiro. Welcome to your Humanities Half Hour. I'm Catherine Perry, and today we're talking about lunar calendar applications for the Chamorro and Carolinian cultures. And we have 4 guests today with a lot of knowledge joining us here in the first half of the show. Jack Ogumoro, Uncle Jack. He is the on-site coordinator for Western Pacific Regional Fishery Management Council, and also Cecilio Raikiulipiy. He is he's on the advisory panel for the council and also a member of the Rfalawash Lunar Calendar Committee. Uncle Jack, Cecilio, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you, Kathy.
Thank you.
We're happy to be here.
We were joking before the show started, Uncle Jack, that by the time I give your title, the show would be over because it's so long. What does WESTPAC actually do for us here in the Marianas? What is your role?
The council is a creation of a national law called the Magnuson-Stevens Act. And the law provides the council with the mandate to manage our fisheries within the US EEZ. And the WESTPAC jurisdiction includes our southern neighbor of Guam up to the Marianas, CNMI, up north all the way to Hawaii and down to American Samoa, as well as the Pacific Insular Area remote islands, Johnston, Wake Island, and Paimara.
Well, that's why the name of the organization is so large, because the area you cover is so large.
Yes, our council, there are, if I'm not mistaken, about I think five or six councils, but our council has the biggest jurisdiction.
So how is the council related to traditional lunar practices for the Chamorros and Carolinians?
In the beginning, the council was managing our fisheries based on what we call place-based management regime. We develop fishery management plans.
That's another big word, Uncle Jack.
Yeah, they're very big
You're
words.
You're just throwing all the big words out.
I know, but then...
Break it down.
I think it was about 8 years ago when we shifted our management approach to what we call ecosystem-based management approach. And that ecosystem-based management approach looks at everything, holistic,
cultural.
Which includes, of course, cultural, and that's how we are now talking about traditional fishing practices. And so with all these education activities that we're doing, one of them is the lunar calendar.
Which you brought a copy of for me, right?
Yes.
Well, thank you. So kind of you to offer that. Now, Cecilia, you had a role. We're family, we can do that. You had a role in developing this. How does the lunar calendar, I know we only have half a show to talk about this, but what are some important ways the lunar calendar is incorporated into Carolinian culture as far as fishing?
The lunar calendar using in fishing and traditional navigation. For fishing, let me give you an example like full moon. So if you look in our traditional calendar on full moon, especially in the month of May and June, that will be really good for fishing lobsters.
Oh.
Okay.
Okay, guys, take out your notebooks. Start making notes here for those of you.
Right after full moon, we call it Pungilimar. That means the eye of the fish in the ocean. They cannot really see, because after the full moon, their eyes cannot really see your lure and your bait. So it's not good. It's not a good day to go fishing right after the full moon.
Ah, okay.
And also the full moon, during the full moon, there's a lot of reef fish that they would not bite your bait because their stomach is big. All the eggs in the fish. Yeah.
Wow.
So
Okay.
they're full, they're lazy to move. So for spear fishing, it's good. For
Because-
bottom fishing, it's not good. For trolling, it's not good also because the fish are pregnant and they will hate the sound of engine.
Oh,
Yeah. All
okay.
right. And for navigation, the lunar calendar for navigation, those are all the stars. So the moon phases relate to the stars that rises on the east. Because the name of the star, and then that's 1 month. We have 14 stars, total of 14 stars to complete 1 year.
Kind of like compass points
Yes.
on the Carolinian compass,
Yes.
where they rise and where
And
they
sits.
and set.
Yeah.
And I was amazed to find out that the Carolinians have a name for the moon every single day
Yes.
of the month.
Yes.
Whereas in English you have like new moon, quarter moon, half moon.
Yeah.
How can you? I'm going to put you to the test here. Be honest. When you look at the moon tonight, I'm assuming the moon's out. Well, I don't know. It
The
might
moon
not
is
be.
almost finished in the
It's
east.
February 15th
Yeah.
when we're recording this. So, but on any given night, when you look up at the moon, can you tell what day of the lunar month it is?
Yeah, you're starting from the west. When you first see it, in the west we call it Sigoru. Sigoru meaning you're entertaining the moon.
Oh.
Aururu, Sigoru, you're looking at it.
Oh.
Okay. Eling means it's getting nicer. Eling.
Eling.
Okay, that's the
yes, I know
second.
that word.
So we have it all the way. So the last one we call it Deref, means that's the end. So it's 30 days from the west to the east all the way, and then we divide into 3. So we call it west, and then in the middle, and then the east.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Uncle Jack, how do you take this traditional knowledge and incorporate it into the work that the council does? For example, you've published this calendar through the council, which is really an excellent resource for traditional knowledge. What is it you hope will happen with this calendar that aligns with what you're trying to do with the council?
Well, if you look at the calendar, there's so many traditional things in there, including the Chamorro and Rafalawas languages, names after the different fishes and the seasonal runs and the moon phases. Although in Chamorro and Rafalawas, and so. What we're attempting to do here is to promote not only the language, but the traditional practice of our ancestors when it comes to fisheries. Like Cecilio pointed out, by looking at the moon phases, we know when to fish and what kind of fish to catch. And looking at that, we also have tide chart in the calendar, which is very important to our fishermen.
Right.
Because they also are very knowledgeable on when to go fishing as far as the tide is concerned, and so they need something like what we're holding here for them to know when to go fishing, and so.
I just want to add on to what Jack is explaining, that to make regulations for fisheries, they will include our traditional knowledge. So based on all the traditional knowledge, they can make regulation, so they can understand that, even though we give them, time to go fishing, but they have to follow their tradition.
Yeah.
And they're the best time to go fishing instead of restrict them from fishing.
Yeah, and so, like I was alluding to in the beginning, we look at everything holistically, including the practice of our people. Just because they might not have a PhD or completed a thesis or a report on fishery, doesn't mean that what they know doesn't work as far as managing our fisheries.
It's actually
And so-
proven over generations.
Yes, and so
Go ahead.
yeah, and so we want to make sure that we want to make
You
sure
want to
that,
make sure you get back to that phone call after this interview, but go ahead.
Yes. So we want to make sure that our knowledge is also an integral part of the management apparatus
Right.
to develop our fishery plans.
The indigenous people had conservation way before federal regulations or
Yes.
local regulations were implemented, and it's proven
Yes.
over generations.
Yeah, and some people may not believe it, but we've been practicing conservation long before we were quote unquote discovered.
Civilized, yeah.
Civilized.
Yeah, civilized.
Okay.
So I know that we have such tremendous gratitude to you for sharing your knowledge with I want to say the younger generation, but also my generation that kind of doesn't apply this stuff that's still applicable, as you said, Uncle Jack, today. I feel like our conversation today is just a starting point for maybe to spark some interest in people who would like to learn more about these things. How can they access this information that you're sharing, Cecilio? Is there a group that you're a part of that other people can become a part of if they would like to further their knowledge?
Yeah, they can contact Jack or call me or call Uncle Lino, and we can share what we can. Yeah.
Refaluash, bomete importante si bu amshisha koshel.
Oh, importante po sa bamsu yas course where yas course legal abuela hisiyo me huleyas ne yas ko le ibu ajudagis yas que matalamal. Es importante po sa musu subka mama wa losa ya ko be ngare siso feri mille subu preserve ya ko ne awe merel amarkono ne mos sabo huli ya kastomie siso huli risilo sawe sa armas kumur sugule irio ne siso mol subalaisul be his narmas nes malbas khususang ngelo hi mama yasa come hi me costumbres ne necesita busbo ala fose torre melo.
Just in summary, it's important for us to keep this knowledge so that we can keep our identity as a people and not become lost in the world without an identity, even if there's just a few Carolinians. As long as we have the knowledge, we're strong. Any final words?
Gusto ko na kami tonap muna ka torga na kami baboy at kamama na kami kakor we ngari si repia man kakor nge bo katchar matalaman ngari si repia kasi toto me ga salo igida inang man bo si bo wori na man meta si bo katchar giliso.
We've been speaking this half of the show with Jack Ogumoro, the on-site coordinator for Western Pacific Regional Fishery Management Council, and also Cecilio Raikiulipiy, an advisor to the council and also a member of the Faluash Lunar Calendar Committee.
The Northern Marianas Humanities Council invites the public to this year's CNMI Junior High Mock Trial on Saturday, April 7th from 8 a.m. to 12 noon at Guma Justicia Courthouse in Susupi. This non-competitive event has students learning about the law and standard courtroom procedures as they argue a fictitious case of a shootout between a farmer and a drug enforcement agent. Participating schools are Dandan Middle School, Francisco Mendiola Sablan Middle School, Hopwood Middle School, Escuela Francisco de Borja, Dr. Rita Enos Junior High School, Tinian Junior High School, Chacha Ocean View Middle School, Saipan International School, Saipan Community School, and Mount Carmel School. All rise Saturday, April 7th at 8 a.m.
Welcome back to Your Humanities Half Hour. We're speaking today about lunar calendar applications in the local Chamorro and Carolinian culture. And joining us today for this half of the show are Isidoru Cabrera and also Stanley Taisacan Mas Matungonia as Stanley Lau. Ginin Luta. Thank you, gentlemen, for coming on the show today and making time to share your knowledge.
Thank you, Catherine.
So, Sid, when we were looking for the right person to come in and share some of the Chamorro knowledge about how the Chamorros use the lunar calendar, there was one name that everybody kept saying, and that was your name. Yeah, tell us a little bit about how you came to know so much. You seem to be the go-to person.
I started working for the government in 1976, and I used to work with old folks. A lot of them passed away already. Older farmers, and as an agriculture extension agent, they practice traditional farming. When to plant and looking at the face of the moon and the sun. So during that 20-30 years of experience as an extension agent, I learned a lot from our older folks, and they teach me. That's how I gain knowledge, using we'll call it lunar calendar,
Zago, Mr. Taisacan, how is it you came to be so knowledgeable about these practices?
Because my grandmother, Elisa Dim, foster grandmother, my uncle Tobias Maratita, he's one of the most experienced in the ancestral way of harvesting plants and hunting and fishing by using the moon phase. My father too is a Chamorro Carolinian, so it has a similarity in that it's sharing the moon. So that's how I learned since I was a kid, a little boy. I was only at Chiligwagwa, following them to go fishing,
Carrying the fishing baskets.
That's what they call Chiligwagwa.
Yeah.
So you get to learn by force. I rather play, but I have to follow them, I have to fish.
Yeah.
And they will show me the moon phase. And I have to remember, I don't pay attention until I grew up. Mm-hmm. And I was big. I said, oh my God, I have to learn the tide, because the tide ties with the moon. Then the type of fishing. That's how I learn. So I get to focus my interest in the moon phase and the seasonal fish run. So I don't need to, keep going back and forth fishing and not having a good luck.
The right time, the right day.
It has to be the right time and the right moon phase.
Right.
To get a good catch, for the family.
Stanley, Sid, I was surprised when we were talking a few days ago to learn from you that there is even a right time to cut bamboo or to harvest bamboo. And I see you have a whole list of things there that you would like to share with us. Go ahead and give us what you got there.
Catherine, that's correct. Learning from our older folks, the farmers, when they want to cut bamboo or any kind of wood, like tangan or banolu or pine tree, to build a palapala or a wooden house, they have to look at the moon phase.
Why?
And it's the question why. I think it's that will be explained maybe later on. But, they have to be cut during new moon, when especially like the first few days of new moon, and also they mentioned that it has to correlate it with the tide, which has to be a low tide, a new moon and a low tide. Why? Maybe, the assumption that when you cut it during that time, the wood will not be infested. with insect. Something new. I'm not sure scientifically how that works, but it has a correlation. And like example, bamboo. No, if you cut it during new moon and at low tide, that bamboo will not be infested with insect like powder puff termites. Those insects that bore through the wood or the bamboo, and they create this new
really
powder puff.
fine.
Yeah, very fine.
Residue. Yes.
But if you cut it during the off season, at the wrong timing, that when that infestation comes.
Wow.
But if you cut it during the new moon or the first few phase of the moon, new moon, and a low tide, then that wood or the bamboo will not be affected or infested with the. It has something to do with the the tide and
now, I'm thinking of maybe trying to start a small taro patch in my backyard. Let's talk practical purposes now. Those people, I'm not really a green thumb. Maybe I'm not following the lunar calendar. Maybe that's why half my plants die. But help me and the rest of us out there. Give us some good advice for home gardeners or people trying to grow food.
Yeah, and in the olden days, we don't have irrigation, and they follow the schedule of the. In fact, we have 4 seasons, and I'll mention that. Winter, spring, summer, and fall.
Okay.
And although we don't really feel it, but we can identify. From September to March. The temperature is lower, it's cooler, and then from March to September, which is spring and summer, it's really hot, It's because the sun, right now the sun is shining below the equator, but starting on March 20, next month, the sun will be moving and it will be shining above the equator. That's
so is this a good time to plant taro? Or
planting taro can be done any time of the year, provided you have water. But if you're going to plant it in a traditional way, probably you start planting late May or June. Because taro requires a lot of water.
Okay.
And it takes about 5 to 6 months to harvest. So,
okay.
Yeah.
I'm going to make a note of that, May or June. What about, are there any other types of crops that stand out to you? This is the time you must plant, or this is the time you must harvest?
Okay, a good example is planting yam. Today is February. Some people will start planting late February or early March, because that's the time when the yam will start sprouting, because yam is a seasonal crop. And once they start sprouting in March, they are planted in the ground, in a mound, and then harvested in December, because the plant will start automatically losing their leaf and start to die off. Yeah,
okay.
so that's the time to harvest.
All right.
So it takes about 8 to 9 months from planting to harvesting yam. So those are crops that are grown during this type of situation.
Stanley, how about wow, I realize now why I'm not much of a green thumb and I'm not a good fisherman. I think it's all about the lunar moon. What about fishing? What are some practical tips we can learn from the Chamorro culture to help us catch more fish?
For example, let's take the tio for the seasonal fish run, like the tio and the goldfish. Okay, so the easiest way is, you always like example April, May. That's when we're expecting the run to come in. So the talajero, the fishermen with cast net, they will usually stroll around, pick on the beach, like they look at the first new moon, first to the third moon. Then there's no run, so they go to the first quarter. Then they look at it, if there's no run, they wait to the full moon. If not there, so they go by the different moon phase. Say you have the new moon, then you count 5 days, and you got the first quarter, 5 to 6 days, your full moon, 5 to 6 days, the last quarter, then again. It's a repeated moon cycle. So the best time when you see that the run is coming, it's running. So I would pick the first three new moon, first moon to the third moon. Why?
Yeah, why?
Because of the tide. And the tide, the fish follow the tide coming in.
So that would be a very high tide?
The tide coming in, right.
Ah, okay.
Because the midday is low tide on this three new moon phase. So when the sun start to set, you don't see the moon yet, but you can see the tide coming in.
Okay.
So, common sense. Fish will follow the tide coming in to feed. Okay? When they're going to go out, they have to follow the tide going out too.
And that's not a good time to...
It's not a good time when they're coming out. The
okay.
tide is going out. When it's coming in, that's the best time too.
Mm-hmm.
Early morning, what does from the first three moon, late, like 4:30 and down to 5 o'clock.
That's really early.
You have to go to in the morning too. You get up there like 6 o'clock before sunup.
Okay.
Up to 9 o'clock. So it's just morning and evening for this first three moon phase. Then after that, when it's really running, you can go first quarter, but you have to wait for the tide. Also, that tide ties with the moon phase.
Do you have an opportunity to share this knowledge there in Rhoda? And thank you so much for coming for the Lunar New Year party in the Marianas. But do you have opportunities to share this in Rhoda?
Yes, I do. Every time I invited to a cultural day, I will mention about the lunar and calendar, and we pass this out to the fishermen and to the school children too, so they get to look at the moon phase. And the reason why we are different with the moon phase calendar for the Rafalo was they have each and a day moon phase, because us in the Chamorro, we only pick the very important part of the moon phase, which is the first three, the first quarter, full moon, last quarter, and the Hinekop, they call it Sinahin Uno Stay Tres, Quatro Presente, Gualafon, Quatro Menguante,
yes,
Hinekop.
And
Those are the four parts that are important, because that ties also in farming. And
I caught that word sinahi. That's the shape of the necklace that you see a lot of the Chamorros wear. So that's a good way to remember that. Gentlemen, we might have to do another show where we can delve further into this. Maybe I'll try to plant my taro during that time that you mentioned, Sid. But before we go, I just want to give you both a few more minutes for any final thoughts. I know you got a lot to share.
Yeah, and before that, I'd just like to mention that, we call it pre-made agua de abril. It's a rain that always comes at the end of March and the first week of April.
Okay.
And that's when really, the traditional people will be planting cassava and banana, so that they start putting out root. And then by the time the rainy season comes in late May or June, July, the growth will be stimulated by rain. But they are usually planted early in pre-made agua de abril, which is in most cases
first rain
it will rain this coming March, end of March or April.
Okay.
There will be heavy rain coming during that period.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, so for me, the only thing I like to encourage our native Chamorro, also the Carolinian, has this cultural fishing practices, which are really faded, such as the gadi, using coconut leaf to catch seasonal goldfish and the ii. It's a friendly way of harvesting it, and that really ties with the moon phase and the tide. It's a friendly way of catching it, and it's one of the traditional way that has faded already in our culture. My family and myself still using that practice on Rhoda. We try to share it. We demonstrate it also to the kids. We share it to the family on Rhoda. But we also like to share it with the whole, people here in the cinema who are interested in the future. That reflects on, even the type of fishing of using the coconut shell and the rock, which is called the poyo, by feeding the opelo.
Is that for octopus?
Atsuman.
Oh, well, I'm sorry. What's Atsuman?
Macro scat.
Oh, okay.
That one's lost already.
Well, hopefully you can bring it back. Before we go, would
Yep.
you like to share anything in Chamorro for our Chamorro speakers that are listening in today?
Yeah, Catherine, thanks for that. Yeah, it's very important for, like me and other folks to start teaching younger generation, because this is very important for them to learn. Like some of my grandkids, I'm telling them that, last night, it's a new moon, and you have to tell them that sumahi pilan, and then it's a full moon, it's like walafun. And those are important things that we need to teach our younger generation, like low tide, mati, and high tide is afnu. And, teach them also to go and fish during the best time of the day to fish. And, so those are very important, and we like to continue promoting and teaching younger people our, because it's important that they learn, because we're not going to be here for longer time, but at least something that is, including the language, we need to speak our native tongue. If you're Chamorro, you speak, and do it at home. You cannot teach them at school. Do it at home, 24/7, and that's the best lesson they can get. Thank you.
The last message I would like to share with this new generation is the way I was taught to respect the resources, land resources and the sea resources, because I've seen the loss of respect, and I've seen greed. Just 2 weeks ago, when I corralled a Tulam Rhoda, it's like people just overcome my decision, causing those fish to die on the bottom, and they blame it on me. I was the only person that will corral and share it. I share to the whole community.
That's the traditional way.
That's a traditional way of sharing. But with the loss of respect to the leader, which is I give the instruction, and they, when I turn my back, they delete my instruction. So it's a shame. When there's no respect to the resources, it's bad. So I would like to remind everyone, especially on our island of Rhoda, to maintain that respect from our elder and pass it down to the generation to come, because we are the model for the future generation.
And the source of
That's all I
knowledge.
would like to, for everyone, not only people in Rhoda, but for everyone, Chamorro group, and as well as everyone who are listening to this program, to respect the resources of the land and the sea, which is made available for us to enjoy, all of us, for the future generation to come. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We've been speaking with Stanley Taisacan, who is also the chairman of the Chamorro Lunar Calendar Committee under WESTPAC. I forgot to mention that, Stanley. And also Isidoru Cabrera. Gentlemen, thank you very much for sharing your knowledge today.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
This has been your Humanities Half Hour. I'm Catherine Perry.
This program was supported by a We the People grant awarded to the Northern Marianas Humanities Council from the National Endowment for the Humanities. Any views, findings, conclusions, or recommendations expressed in this program are those of the participants and do not necessarily represent those of the National Endowment for the Humanities or the Northern Marianas Humanities Council.